I'm going to answer a few questions. So where did these three models come from? How do we create this experiment, and how do we make it interactive? Okay. You know, there's actually a lot of choice these days for getting 3D models, and I just bought the 3D models, and there's also a lot of free ones on Sketchfab. So Sketchfab has a tremendous number of 3D models out there. So here's the creature. So if we look at the creature here, okay, so that's the creature that we used in the program. So yeah, it has a number of different animations. And I just downloaded the GLTF format. That's the format you want to make it work with Wizard. So you need the GOTF format. So in fact, all of these things are just without any additional work. Just get them from the web. Like the room here, that's also just the 3D models. I did not actually create any 3D models. I just got the 3D models, and I placed them in a folder called, let's go to our resources. So this is basically the structure of the site lab. That's the eye tracking analytics lab. So you have this folder called resources, and there we have environments. Okay, so now here is the environment. Okay, so that's just that model downloaded, and then you see the format's a bit different. It's OSGB. So what I do is when I open it up, I just save it as OSGB, just because that's the native format for using it in the experiment. So and you can do things like resize objects, rename them, etc. But I'll show you what I did do. So if you click here on one of the objects, for instance, here we have the basketball. Okay, initially it wasn't called basketball, so there was no way for, you know, we had to tell the program somehow that this is an object that should be tracked in the program. So for instance, okay, here we have an object. Okay, here we have a bunch of these objects. Let's just see what else we can find. Okay, so here we have the TV. Okay, so that's the TV object. So to make this an object that is used in the eye tracking, we can just come over here and say insert above and make it a group, and then we rename it, and we just call it TV. All right, so that's all we have to do, and then I'm just going to save. I'm going to save this just over the old model. So now there's an object here called TV. So with this information, it will now be in the list of objects that can be tracked. So let's just verify that. So we'll come back over here, and we have the main program here for the 3D scenes. So just execute it again. This time I'll use it in desktop mode. Okay, so we're not going to record anything. I just want to click here on configure, and now you see we have a TV, and we can make it a fixation region or not. So that's basically how easy it is, at least for those objects. Okay, but I did add these additional objects that I was able to interact with. So that's where you have two levels of expertise here. So if you don't want to, or you can't program, you can just get a 3D model, and you can name parts of it, and they will become accessible. So you can set these as up as targets to track. You can even add additional objects. So see, there's a bunch of objects already included, but you can download more from the internet. Like I'll just add a chair. So here's a chair. Okay, now this chair will also become an object that can be tracked. Okay, so here's our chair, and we can do things to the chair. So we can move it around. So in the world, we can reposition it. We can change its size. Maybe we want it to be really small and see how people react. Okay, so and you just place these objects into the objects folder. Okay, so you can make your own or download from the internet. The reality is everybody's just downloading things from the internet these days because, I mean, let's just have a look here. Let's look for chair and downloadable models of chairs. So there's so many chairs. A bunch of them are free, some of them are paid, but there's a lot of objects out there that you can just use. Things have changed in years past, that's for sure. Okay, so now let's go and look at how do we make something more complicated. That's adding interactivity. So now we're going to go down into the code, and like right here is where I added the objects that have interactivity. So I have a bunch of chickens, and all I've done is, add the chicken and place it in a specific position. But how do I know where, right? How do I know where to place the chicken? Well, that's very easy. I can come over here into my scene, and if I want a chicken like to be placed like right on the chair here, for example, I just point there, right click, copy 3D position, and then I come back over here, and you see it just pastes the 3D position. So I could just replace these coordinates, and I can place the chicken there. So I come up with my arbitrary names for my chickens, and then I have the creature. And then notice that the creature, I've done a couple more things to it. I've set its orientation, that's just make it turn 22 degrees to face me. And then I changed its state. Okay, let's look at our creature here. So let's go into the objects, and here is our creature. Okay, so the creature, that's just how it came when I downloaded it. It has these various states, animation states. So now it's idling, it's waiting for me to look at it, and there's different kinds of smiles. So okay, so now it's smiling and so forth. So these are just different states, number 5, number 6. Okay, the chickens are the same way. They come with animations, they're animated models. So now how do we make it interactive? Well, here we have these functions that are just part of the system. So you go on gaze time, and that means when you've made a fixation, I'm adding a couple of extra things. So first of all, I'm adding this line here. That's the line that tells the software, let's send a marker to acknowledge, and it's going to have the name of the stimulus, and it's going to be a stimulus marker. So this is the single line. It's all we need indeed, this is all documented in the documentation, right? To get the marker in acknowledge. So these markers right here, let's say creature, chick 1, chick 2, that's how they came in. And the interactivity, here I say, okay, if the object is the creature, let's change its animation to number 6, which is the smiling animation. So I look at it, it's going to smile. And if it's the chicken, it's going to jump. So that's its animation, number 10. And in that tool here, which is called the inspector, you can very easily check all these things, like look at your avatars and look at the objects. And then I say, okay, well, when the gaze ends, what happens then? On gaze end, so once I'm no longer looking at the objects, I change their animation. So the chickens are now idling, and so is the creature. Okay, and so basically that's how it works. So you can just use it as is. You can get 3D models and just perform an eye tracking experiment. But if you want to interact with the environment, you can get into the code and you can start making changes. And because the functions are, nicely named, and there is also extensive documentation that tells you exactly what to do, it's really not that difficult.